and losing, look, you got PFF grading you every week, like you were just referencing there before I came on. They're grading you. And now you go as a first-year quarterback, you barely know shit, and now everyone's telling you suck, and it takes a while to regain your confidence.
The operations aren't there. He's not the guy. Is that too soon?
Yeah, but I would argue this. You're assuming that everybody knows how to develop a quarterback. You're assuming that you're going into a program. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people who have no idea what they're doing when they're tasked with coaching a quarterback or calling an offense. So are you saying, just like we'd rank quarterbacks 1 to 32, do you rank offensive coordinators 1 to 32? Do you rank quarterback coaches 1 to 32? Well, what if you have the 32nd ranked coordinator?
Tom Brady criticized the NFL and Cleveland, pointing out that although teams have coaches who guide the players, these coaches themselves aren't held to the same level of scrutiny or ranking as the players are. He highlighted how players like Shedeur are consistently evaluated, while coaches, who play a significant role in shaping player performance, particularly quarterbacks, remain largely unaccountable. Brady suggested that these coaches often don't provide equal opportunities for players and, in some cases, lack the expertise needed to effectively coach a quarterback, yet still maintain their relevance in positions. Tom Brady didn't stop there and further criticized the coaches, pointing out that they claim Shedeur isn't a quarterback on the same level as Dillon and Flacco. He then raised a series of questions for these coaches, asking whether they had ever given Shedeur the opportunity to prove himself in training sessions or supported him in understanding the plays. Brady suggested that if they hadn't done so, something that seemed clear, then they had no right to question his abilities or performance. Tom Brady didn't stop there and further criticized the coaches, pointing out that they claim Shedeur isn't a quarterback on the same level as Dillon and Flacco. He then raised a series of questions for these coaches, asking whether they had ever given Shedeur the opportunity to prove himself in training sessions or supported him in understanding the plays. Brady suggested that if they hadn't done so, something that seemed clear, then they had no right to question his abilities or performance.
And that's a hard thing to evaluate, but I'd also say there's not many people who even know what to do. It's not like they're CEOs of businesses. A lot of times they're football coaches, with all due respect. They're not running large corporations.
Right.
As Bill Parcells said, they're PE coaches a lot of times that get elevated to, coaching positions.
And Brady's point holds weight, especially in Shedeur's case, where this inconsistency is all too common. One coach might claim they're evaluating him and planning to develop his skills, while another remains silent or evasive, offering no clear answers. It becomes apparent that these coaches have no real understanding of how Shedeur can improve or prove himself when they aren't giving him the reps or opportunities to do so. Without that crucial support, it's unfair to expect him to succeed or meet their expectations. But that is what kept on happening, and it is not the first time it is getting exposed. Stephen A. and Louis Riddick exposed this a long time ago, that this coaching staff is not ready to give him chances. Stephen A. Smith fired shots at the situation surrounding Shedeur. As Sanders was set to start his first preseason game, Stephen A. declared that he's being framed for failure. Here's why. Shedeur hadn't had a single first-team rep until now. He had been sidelined, not even given a chance to gel with the starters. And now, out of nowhere, he's being thrust into the starting role. According to Stephen A., this isn't just a mistake, it's a setup for failure. Something's not adding up, and Stephen A. is calling it out for what it is.
But I'm going to answer this question by saying Shedeur, and I'm going to tell you why. There's been 11 practices, if I remember correctly. He's been starting against he's been playing against the third unit. He's fourth on the depth chart. And then suddenly you throw him into the start lineup, and he hasn't had any reps with the first team at all.
Louis Riddick also shared his perspective on Shedeur and the coaching staff, adding another important layer to the discussion. While Riddick agreed that Shedeur would eventually get his chance to play, he pointed out the real problem, the severe lack of reps he had received with the team. Riddick emphasized that, even though Shedeur was being given an opportunity, he would have to perform at an extraordinary level in those limited chances. Why? because he hadn't had enough time or resources to build the necessary chemistry with the rest of the team. The odds were stacked against him, and those few reps only added to the pressure. It became clear to everyone that the coaching staff's approach was a major factor in the struggles, with a noticeable difference in the way other players were treated versus Shedeur. Louis Riddick wasn't pulling any punches. He made it crystal clear that players drafted this low, like shedeursanders, typically don't make it to the first team unless they have someone fighting for them, someone willing to advocate for their opportunity. Riddick's frustration boiled over when he pointed out that it's still unclear who was even responsible for bringing Shedeur's name up for signing in the first place. This uncertainty, in Riddick's eyes, put Shedeur at an even greater disadvantage. Without a clear champion in the organization, Shedeur was left in a precarious situation, fighting against forces that weren't even properly aligned in his favor.
In the preseason game. And here's the other thing, number two. You have to have people who advocate for you when you are a lower round draft pick. We don't know who's advocating for him within the organization because we don't know who stood up for him and who really wanted to draft him. So I can tell you this right now.
And Riddick's point was only reinforced by Jimmy Haslam's alarming comments. Haslam admitted that he had no idea about signing Shedeursanders, leaving the decision entirely up to the coaching staff. This raised a huge red flag. How could it be ignored that the coaching staff was clearly unprepared to develop Shedeur, and now they were seemingly trying to push him out? This lack of foresight and support from the top down made it clear that the system wasn't set up to give Shedeur a fair chance, and the coaching staff's failure to properly develop him was becoming all too apparent. Stephen A. Smith didn't let Jimmy Haslam off the hook after his statement about not even thinking of signing Shedeursanders while driving back. Stephen made it crystal clear. This wasn't just a casual remark. It was part of a bigger strategy to ensure Shedeur didn't get the chance he deserved. According to Stephen, Haslam and others weren't simply playing the draft game. They were actively working against Shedeur, making sure he was never signed. Stephen laid it out for everyone, saying, "You were not going to let it happen." And frankly, he wasn't wrong. Haslam's comments only confirmed what many suspected. Certain people in power had no intention of giving Shedeursanders a fair shot. It wasn't just about football. It was about power, influence, and control.
We understand what's going on here. That's why Haslam was in his car on a Friday talking about, I can't see it happening, because they weren't going to let it happen.
In conclusion, the situation surrounding Shedeursanders highlights a deeply concerning issue within the coaching staff and organizational structure. Despite being a talented quarterback, Shedeur's journey has been marred by inconsistent support, limited opportunities, and a lack of proper development. As Tom Brady, Stephen A. Smith, and Louis Riddick all pointed out, it's not just about the player's ability, but about the environment and resources provided to help them succeed. The coach's failure to give Shedeur meaningful reps with the first team, along with the uncertainty about who was advocating for his signing in the first place, put him in a precarious position. When top executives like Jimmy Haslam admit they had no involvement in bringing Shedeur aboard, it becomes clear that there was no solid foundation or plan in place for his development. The coaching staff's inability to properly prepare Shedeur and their subsequent efforts to push him out only adds to the growing frustration. If organizations truly want to build successful players, they must commit to providing the right support and opportunities, rather than setting them up for failure with a lack of alignment and accountability. The blame doesn't lie solely on the players. It's the system that ultimately fails them. What do you think? Can a player truly succeed when the system around them isn't set up to support their growth? Is it fair to expect a player to thrive without the right opportunities and development? Should coaches be held more accountable for their role in shaping player performance? Or is it solely the player's responsibility to overcome obstacles? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss how we can better support young talent in professional sports.